The answer is very. And I was looking for something I could do from home. So I decided on a whim just to start a podcast. And here we are. So, it was pretty much a learn as you go. I didn't know who the heck I was going to interview. I didn't know how the heck to record it. So I just got some free software online that wasn't even Zoom and recorded it. I didn't know anything really except I like listening to podcasts. So it was kind of a very learn as you go experience. YouTube's great for small creators, especially YouTube Shorts. YouTube Shorts are great too. Yeah, if you know how to set it up right, you can really attract a lot of people's attention on YouTube. Paste, which is an app that I recommend to anybody in any profession, podcasting or not. It keeps a history of everything you've ever copied so that you don't have to go back and find it again.
Hello and welcome to my podcast story, the show where I go behind the mic with podcast creators to uncover the real stories behind their shows. I am your host, Wisdom Okonkwo, and every week I sit down with podcasters from around the world, explore how they create, what inspires them, challenges they face, and how they are making their mark, whether it's for passion, profit, or both. If you've ever wondered how podcast hosts manage their workflow, what keeps them going, or what it really takes to build a podcast that resonates, you are in the right place. So sit back, get inspired, and let's dive into today's episode. Today's guest is a dynamic voice for disability rights, health policy, reform, and authentic storytelling. Tess is a writer, podcaster, and proud college graduate who brings a nuanced, lived experience as someone with cerebral palsy. She's fiercely passionate about creating a world where equity isn't just an idea, but a lived reality. She's an outspoken advocate for legislative reforms such as SSI Restoration Act and the SSI Savings Penalty Elimination Act, two critical measures that would eliminate discriminatory barriers to marriage, employment, and financial autonomy for individuals. This activism extends into the criminal justice system as well, where she campaigns for the release of Crosby Green, a man she believes was wrongfully convicted of murder in 1990. When she's not championing justice, Devon hosts the Will with It podcast, where she explores disability culture, advocacy, and more. She's also a devoted fan of the TV show Survivor, so much so that she credits host Jeff Probst with teaching her how to conduct impactful interviews. Get ready for a powerful, thought-provoking, and heart-centered conversation. What's your name, the name of your podcast, and what's your podcast all about?
My name is Devon Wieters. My podcast is Real With It, and we just interview people with disabilities and people who've had inspiring, fascinating lives, and we just interview them, and hopefully people can get inspiration or wisdom or interesting facts.
Yeah.
Lives.
What was the reason that led to you starting the podcast?
Well, if you haven't listened to Rob's sister Nino of Rob Has a Podcast, if you like reality TV, go to him because he does all things reality TV. So Survivor, Big Brother, Amazing Race. If you like all those shows, go to him. He's hilarious. And I said, how hard could this be, this whole podcasting thing? The answer is very. And I was looking for something I could do from home. So I decided on a whim just to start a podcast, and here we are.
How old is the podcast now?
How old is it? Well, we first started in 2018, and we've gone through many evolutions since then. So technically it's
7.
7, but our current evolution is 2 or 3. So depending on how you count.
When you started the podcast, you said you started it on a whim. What was the experience like? Because it was something you've never done before.
So it was pretty much a learn as you go. I didn't know who the heck I was going to interview. I didn't know how the heck to record it. So I just got some free software online that wasn't even Zoom and recorded it. I didn't know anything really except I like listening to podcasts. So it's kind of a very learn as you go experience. We probably should have had a plan going in, but I kind of learned as I went, and we're developing a plan as we go along.
You keep saying we.
I mean, I always say we. I don't know why, but
I thought maybe you had like a co-host or someone running the podcast with you. That's why I had to ask.
No.
Currently, are you the one producing your podcast from start to finish?
Sorry, you cut out at the end.
One producing your podcast from start to finish, or is there someone helping you out?
Unfortunately, yes, 99.9% of the time, I am the one producing it from the start to finish. I've had a few people like reach out and offer to help me edit episodes here and there, and I had a boyfriend for a time that was helping me with it, but unfortunately that relationship didn't end well. So I am now the one doing it, which is kind of overwhelming at times, which is why we only release every other week. But yes, I am the one doing it.
You're wearing so many hats right now. You're the producer, you're the writer, you are the host, so many hats. And that for me, it's really, really incredible. What's your
Thank you.
workflow like?
What's my workflow like? Well, I use Descript to edit, it's a text-based editing software, and you edit it like you would edit a Word document, and it cuts the audio out. So that has been an invaluable accessibility tool. I use Grok AI a lot. I just went to a course last night actually on how to use AI to kind of as a marketer to build your business, and it was so helpful. So I will be using that a lot more.
Grok. What about the recording? What do you use for recording?
Zoom.
Okay. So you use Zoom for recording, use the script for editing, and then Grok for ideas and all those other things.
Yes.
You know, we met on Podmatch, so I'm curious, is that where you get your guests from?
Yes. Now, I just recently started using it, but now I get 100% of my guests from Podmatch. That website is amazing.
How did you start using it? You said you just recently started using it.
How have I saved?
How long ago did you start using Podmatch?
Like a few months ago. I don't know exactly when, but a few months ago.
Okay, I want us to step back a bit. When you started your podcast, right? I did ask you why you started your podcast, and you talked about Rob, and you asked another person to check him out. So when you started your podcast, I know you had some intentions, purpose in heart, and right now the podcast is about 7 years, 2 years evolution, as you said. How is the podcast doing with the original intention you had in mind when you started the podcast?
Well, it's completely different because it started as a Survivor recap podcast, and then it turned into what I'm doing now. But I actually like what I'm doing now better. I mean, I love Survivor, but Survivor recaps are a lot harder to do than it seems. So I actually like what I'm doing better now. I think it's changed, obviously, but I still like it and I wouldn't trade it. So
with the podcast that you've been working on for the past 7 years, right? What are some of the personal impact, kind of like personal benefits podcasting has kind of taught you about yourself for the past 7 years?
Well, it definitely taught me like how to find creative workarounds to contact people. A lot of the software that I have is software that helps you like find people's emails and stuff, so I can find just about anybody's email. It taught me how to like put the right things into Google to find like accessible software and stuff. And I've really enjoyed learning from other people's stories. I think those have been really inspiring to me because some people have been through so much and I'm like, wow, how did you make it through that? So basically ingenuity and appreciation, basically.
Yeah. You've been doing it for 7 years. Have you ever gotten messages from your fans or your listeners?
One of the biggest compliments I got, we had this guy named Chet Frith on years ago, and I need to reach back out to him to see how he's doing. He said, I've been sharing your podcast with some of the wounded warriors because he was a wounded warrior himself. So that was a big compliment. I do get compliments from guests on my interview stuff. I've gotten this one girl that I knew from a church small group way back when offered to do a whole rebrand of my podcast, and I let her do it, and she hit it out of the park. We don't have very many listeners. That's our next goal, is to like up the listener. But those are some of the things.
Yeah. It's baby steps, little by little.
Yes.
Yeah. And you mentioned, I know that you keep saying we and our, and I'll take that that's like out of habit, right? When you say our goal, we, that's like, out of it's one of your the way you say it, right? Wow.
Yeah. And I've always been like a very like team, well, not team oriented, but I've always like done stuff with people. So I'm not used to doing stuff by myself. That's why you say it.
Because I just wanted to be sure so that I know, okay, if, there are people behind the scenes, which you did clarify earlier on, and I'm glad you did that. So what I would love to know is what are some of the goals you have for the growth of the podcast?
So I would love to at least do it as like a side hustle to make extra money on the side. That's one goal. And probably the ultimate goal right now is to raise awareness and help push through the U.S. legislature, federal legislature, to acts. One is the SSI Restoration Act, and two is the SSI Savings Penalty Elimination Act. And what those would do is basically allow people to get married and make more money and still receive disability benefits, as well as live together and still receive disability benefits, because currently you are not allowed to do that. So currently the federal regulations are written for 1989 and not 2025. So getting those updated would be, if I never got a SIP from this and those got updated, that would be amazing.
Yeah, that's really, how do I put it? It's really, I don't know. I know you gave a brief byline. For some persons that are curious, probably they might not really be familiar with the laws and all that. Can you explain some of the laws individually and it's deeper?
So to find out all about what we're doing, you can go to wheelwithit.com/reform, because I will definitely not be able to explain them all here. But basically the asset limits right now for to be eligible to receive disability benefits, which is Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, along with the Medicaid waivers, which pays for personal care attendants, housing. Some of them will pay for equipment. So pretty much all the things you need to live. Co-pays for doctor's visits that your primary insurance doesn't cover if you even have a primary private insurance. If not, Medicaid covers all of it. But so things like that, the asset limits to qualify for one of those is $2,000 for a single person and $3,000 for a couple. Now, some states do have workarounds for couples being able to live together, because you can put your partner down as a living caregiver, but not all states do. So those laws need to be changed at the federal level, and the new laws would update the asset limits to $10,000 for a single individual and $2,000 for couples, and they would index them for inflation.
Yeah.
So when prices went up, so would the assets. So, and currently they are not indexed for inflation right now. So that's basically what they would do. Again, to learn all about it, you can go to wheelwithit.com/reform and help us out in any way that you can.
I mean, when you explained it, it all made sense. Like when you started giving the examples of the amounts it was paid, I know I don't live in the US, but I was like 2,000, 3,000. I'm like, that's pretty low. I was like, but yeah, I don't live in the US, but I know that 2,000, 3,000 is pretty low. And I'm assuming it's in a year.
Yeah. Well, yes and no. You can only make a certain salary, but those vary depending on which state you're in. And the 2,000 and 3,000 are asset limits. So basically, if you have $2,000 worth of stuff that they can count against you, or money that they can count against you, then you're disqualified right now. It needs to be updated.
Yeah, I like the purpose and goal of your podcast. Yeah, I would love for you to please, if at any point in time you eventually do change one or if maybe all of the laws, please let me know and I would love to celebrate with you.
I will let everybody know. Trust me. And if individuals want to learn more about this, I don't know if it's available in your country, but you can check and see if Patrice the movie is available on Hulu, the streaming service Hulu, in your area. And it's a movie that explores this issue. It's about a couple that wants to get married and live together, but they're both disabled, so they can't because of the way the benefits are set.
Yeah. I'll add all those things to the show notes so that for those interested, they can definitely check out the movie. Yeah.
Yeah.
You did mention that you want to produce your podcast, and You're even taking some courses on AI for marketing. And I know that since you've taken that course, your marketing for your podcast and your business in general is going to be turbocharged.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm kind of curious. Do you work full time?
No, I don't make any money at the podcast currently. I'm not making any money right now because I am about to move into housing through a nonprofit organization that allows people with disabilities to live in their own apartments with assistance. And they're a great nonprofit organization, but they don't possibly have enough money to subsidize everybody that works with them and lives under them. So they have to use people's benefits to subsidize it most of the time. The money just goes to paying stipends and paying their staff and the office space and everything like that. So all that to say, I don't want there to be any disruption to my benefits until I get in there. And then after I get in there, we'll figure it out.
Yeah. Wow. You're active on YouTube. Your podcast is active on YouTube.
Yes, we do upload on YouTube.
It's always been on YouTube from day one, or is a new strategy you added?
It's a new strategy we added later on because I read somewhere that, the engagement goes up if you do a video podcast on YouTube. So it's a new strategy we added.
How's that working out?
It's working out great. YouTube's great for small creators, especially YouTube Shorts. YouTube Shorts are great too. If you know how to set it up right, you can really attract a lot of people's attention on YouTube.
Yeah. Wow. You mentioned you took a course recently on AI for marketing, and I'd love to hear some of the goals, some of the tactics, or some of the ideas you've had that you are going to implement. Would you love that?
It was actually through this guy named Rick Barker, who was the former manager of Taylor Swift, her very first manager, actually. And he now has a business helping artists, market their music through social media and everything. So it was actually last night. And so to get that, I think you can go, it's on a recording now, but I think you can go to musicindustryBlueprint.com and sign up and get it. It was very good. They gave us prompts to put in, like, okay, tell me my ideal fan. Like, describe my ideal fan. If it's mostly for musicians, but this can be done with anything. If my music is this genre and similar to these artists, or my podcast is this genre and similar to this kind of podcast. And then they were like, okay, based off this, create a 7-day social media calendar for my podcast or whatever it is. So it was very helpful. So yes, you can go to musicindustryBlueprint.com and find that.
Oh, well, I'm glad you took that course, and now the podcast is going to be leveled up. Okay. You mentioned you publish every other week. Currently, how many episodes have you released so far for the past 7 years on the podcast?
I think it's like 100 and something. I can never keep count because we had to take a few down for various reasons. So it's 100 and something, I think.
Wow. Have you ever taken a break, like maybe a very long break for the past within 7 years?
Yeah, I used to take the whole month of like December off because everything gets crazy with the holidays. But yeah, I take breaks every so often. Yeah, it's good. So
Yeah. Wow. I'm curious to know, like, how much do you spend on the podcast every month to run the podcast production and everything, including software?
oh gosh, like I don't even know. I probably should know that figure. Descript is $200 a year. The premium version of Zoom is like $197. Premium Grok is, I don't know how much I'm paying for that, honestly. And that's about it. So around like 3, 4 in reposts, like to allow you to repost other people's Instagram pictures, like for my guests and stuff, like if I want to go into their pictures. That's like $4.99 a month. So that's about it, I think. And Paste, which is an app that I recommend to anybody in any profession, podcasting or not. It keeps a history of everything you've ever copied so that you don't have to go back and find it again. It just makes it so much easier to copy and paste stuff. That's like $14.99 a month, I think. So that's about it for a podcast. So not that much money compared to other podcasters who spend like thousands of dollars on their podcast, but
Yeah. So far now, I know this question I'm going to ask is going to sound like I'm asking you to pick your favorite kid. But what's your favorite episode so far?
So Wang is an entertainment journalist, and as I mentioned before, I love Survivor. So she came on, and for an hour and 30 minutes, we just geeked out about Survivor. I'm like, I know it's not the type of episode that we usually do, but Jeff Probst, the host and showrunner of Survivor, is a dream guest for my podcast because he is also part of the reason, in addition to Rob Sesternino, that I wanted to be in the production/podcasting industry for a living. So I said, yes, please. Geeking out about Survivor for 90 minutes sounds incredible. So that was one of my favorite episodes. And Vance Goforth was one of my favorite episodes because it's just it's a lot of practical tips for people that have kids with like severe disabilities. It's a horrible situation that he went through, but it's very practical in a lot of ways. So yeah, those are two of my favorites.
Earlier on you mentioned your top level goals, and I'm going to say those goals are really. What's the word I want to use now? They are really. What's the word? I'm trying to think of a word. Hey, just a quick break. If you enjoying the insights so far and want even more behind the scenes ideas, inspiration, and tools for growing your own podcast, join my email list at mypodcaststory.com/join. That is mypodcaststory.com/join. You get access to helpful resources, exclusive updates, and the kind of stuff I only share with my email subscribers. Whether you're starting out or already podcasting, there's something valuable waiting for you. Head over to mypodcaststory.com/join and subscribe. Now, back to the episode. Kind goals. There are goals that are beyond just our personal benefits. And yeah, I am rooting for you that you eventually achieve those goals, honestly. But in a couple of years now for the podcast, who are some of the dream guests that you would love to like have on the podcast? And could you like tell us why you would love to have them on the podcast?
Well, as I mentioned before, Jeff Probst, because he made me want to do this for a living, or he's part of the reason that I would want to do this for a living. So Jeff Probst, Johan Hari. If you haven't read his books, please do. They are fascinating. He has one on drug addiction. They're about different societal issues. One on drug addiction, one on the weight loss drugs. That's his latest one, is the one on the weight loss drugs. And he just is brilliant and a fascinating human. So him, and then JD Vance, the current vice president of the United States.
Wow. Okay, I was hoping you were going to mention some like lawmakers and all those people, so that we're looking to change the bill.
Well, yeah. If any senator wants to come on, I mean, come on. Anybody's welcome. So, but yeah, I don't really have a senator that I'm like dying to get on, because the one that originally wrote the SSI Restoration Act, I'm like, okay, I have to have him on, but sadly he passed away. Oh, yeah. So somebody's gonna have to take up that act on his behalf now that he's passed away.
I'd love to see what are some of the difficulties you encountered or experienced when you started your podcast? In the course of now that you've been doing your podcast.
Just like finding listeners and like building up the social media and getting people's attention is probably the hard part.
Okay, has that gotten easier, or is still the way it is?
Sorry, it's definitely gotten easier now that I've taken that marketing course. So
yeah. What about the technical production podcast aspect?
That's definitely gotten easier with Descript because it does all the work for you. So all you have to do is just backspace it with a Word, like you would a Word document, and then when you're ready to write a YouTube description, it'll write a YouTube description for you. It'll cut your long videos up into short clips for you. And the new Instagram Edits app also makes things so much easier. So, brand new. It just came out on the 30th of March, and it is so much easier. Oh my gosh. So that's definitely made things so much easier. So as far as technical stuff goes.
Has there been a time where you ever thought about quitting the podcast?
Oh yeah, I thought about quitting when I look, and it's been like a week since the episode released and it's still gotten like 0 listens. I'm like, why am I putting all this work into this? But I enjoy it and I know it'll come in time. So hopefully sooner than later.
Yeah. How do you? I'm curious. A lot of our podcasters they struggle with publishing and showing up despite the fact that nobody's listening. How do you kind of like go through that phase? Because I know it wasn't that easy.
Well, I don't know. I like it, and I'm like, can't imagine myself if it did take off, it would be my dream job. So I'm like, well, just um, keep doing it and see what it does. If you find a job out there you really like, or, the bills get passed or something else comes up, then you can, quit. But it's all you got right now. So
Wow. Thanks for sharing that. If we were in coffee and we're chatting about regarding podcasts and all that, what would be the three podcast stories or experience you had in the past 7 years that you happily, gladly share?
getting to talk to Aaron Moriarty from CBS News, you might have seen it on 48 Hours. That was amazing. With all the crap we hear about journalists in the news today, and some of it is
Can you go
fine.
into the details? I love the details. How did you contact me?
Well, I feel like journalists get a bad rap. Erin was amazing. She was so nice and so thorough on what she was talking about. You can go to wheelwithit.com/green because we talked about a man named Crosley Green. I won't get too much into it here, but but you can go to wheelwithit.com/green to listen to that. She was so nice.
How did you meet her? How did you contact her and get on the column?
She was actually how I found the software to get in touch with somebody, because I was like, I really want to talk to this woman, but I don't have an email, obviously. So I was like, is there any email finder out there? So I just Googled email finder and I found one and I put in her LinkedIn, because everybody has a LinkedIn nowadays. So I put in the link to her LinkedIn profile and there it was. So that's how I found her.
What's
the one I use is called Signal Hire. That's kind of pricey. It's like $400 a year. I guess I should have included that in my expenses, but it's well worth it though because of people you can find up there. But there is a free one called Rocket Reach, but you only get a limited amount of credits per
month?
Period of time. Yeah. So I might switch back to that one because 400 something dollars a year is a lot to pay, but it's well worth it though.
Wow. I mean, that's really. I like the fact that you're really resourceful, honestly, and yeah, you got how to come. Wow. Probably that's to get the some of dream guests you mentioned.
Yes. I'm working on 2 of the 3 of them. JD Vance is a little bit difficult at the moment, obviously, but So,
yeah, I mean, if we could find people that are close to JD Vance and get them to put in a word for us with JD Vance, then we could get JD Vance on the podcast.
Yeah, so
yeah, that would be lovely. I mean, it will raise the awareness we are hoping to.
Yeah, so
yeah. I mean, earlier on you were about sharing 3 stories, and I did interrupt you when you started sharing the first one to go about the details. So I'd love to know what are the 2 more stories.
I always like it when people compliment me on my interview skills. I don't really have a standout story that I can tell you besides those 2 favorite episodes that I mentioned. Well, 3 favorite episodes, including Aaron's, but
Okay. I want to do something out of the blue.
What?
I want
something crazy that happened?
No, you can share, but I'll.
During my interview with Erin, in the middle of it, her internet completely went out and we had to restart the call. That was the closest I've ever come to having a heart attack on a live podcast, but nothing too crazy.
So what I mean is, I want us to do something out of, I want the listeners to see what it is like when you interview guests on your podcast.
So I usually start with hello, welcome to another episode of Wheel With It. Today we have Wisdom with us on the podcast. How are you today, Wiz?
I'm doing great.
Good. Tell us a little bit about yourself and then we'll get started.
Wow. Wow. Okay. Okay. Your energy just changed immediately.
Yeah.
Oh,
So,
like the moment you just interviewed, there was this.
well, thank you. I always like it when you say that. Thank you.
Yeah. Is there anything you probably need help?
Advertising, marketing, like raising awareness for it would be good because one, I love social media, but I'm horrible at like, as far as my own business, I'm horrible at like putting stuff up for the podcast and stuff. So, but that's going to change now that I took that course yesterday. Yeah, brand awareness and getting my listeners up is probably the main thing I need help with, and editing, because although I can do it by myself, it's so time consuming. So if I had help with those two things, we'd be good. So
But brand awareness, the growth of your past, and yeah, and then edit.
yeah, so
Right now, some growth strategies to see what's actually. And I have you, and if I need anything that I would contact you and reach out to you.
okay,
And
that would be up.
I'll keep my eye to see some of the experiments you'll be doing on your social page.
Yeah.
Wow. I'm so glad that you came on the interview.
I am so glad to talk to you.
Yeah. Wow. That means.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Thank you. I mean, there are a couple of things we could talk about. Yeah, it's the fact that everything that comes on the podcast, the things that they use their podcast to do, I end up learning a lot because I like podcast is one of those things that the limit of can do with your is your imagination.
Yeah, there are podcasts about everything. So podcast is like modern day news, modern day encyclopedia. It's everything. Yeah.
And then there are those who use their podcast for entertainment, like here's now using your podcast for awareness and sharing stories. And then you also have for a lot of our lead, some of them they start the podcast but sell themselves out of it. And it's something they truly want to do, but they find all the reasons why they podcast. What would you advise them if you had to talk to them one on one? What would you tell?
Say there's a lot of stuff you can do for free. So you don't have to have like an insane budget. I wish I'd leaned into the free stuff a little more when I started, but I've never regretted anything that I still pay money for the podcast. I don't regret. So, it's okay. But a lot of stuff you can do for free. So do that. And then there are some expenses that are worth it. So like if you want to do it for real, like don't be afraid to like spend money on like Descript or the premium version of Zoom or Grok or ChatGPT or whatever you use, because those are very helpful. And Canva Premium, that's another must-have if you want to do this.
One of the things I'll be doing now is I'll be telling my potential hosts to kind of take a note before they come on the podcast of how many of their podcast. Most keep track of.
No, I probably should. Yeah. I need to like sit down and be like, okay, what are my podcast expenses? Because I'm sure I would be shocked by how large of a number it is. I don't keep track of it as much.
Yeah, I noticed that you guest on podcast, and that's why you even get much. And I just want us to like flip I've been asking you things about you being a podcast host. So now I want to ask you about you being a podcast guest.
I've had real trouble finding them until I got onto Podmatch. So consistently, I was on like one or two here and there before I got on Podmatch, but consistently since I've been on Podmatch was like a few months.
Okay, so like how many podcasts?
Not as many as other people. I interviewed this one guy, and he was like, since I've been on Podmatch, I've guested on like 59 podcasts. I'm like, no, thank you. I'm like, that is insane. So not quite that many, but I would say like 10, 12, maybe.
That's a lot. Like, I don't guess no post. I'm at 0, so that's a lot. Yeah. I mean, before the end of the year,
Well, maybe not before the end of the year, but that's a good goal. We should eventually.
Wow. So how has the experience been for you?
Good. Most people have been really nice. And so, yes, some interviews are better than others, but mostly good.
You mentioned, I know you want to name, and please, but
No, I won't. When I went on, that was a doozy. Yeah, the guy was just weird, and I was like, this will be the perfect podcast. So,
my listener.
So, like, basically, I think I realize now, he was like reading, and I do it too sometimes, but he was like blatantly doing it. He was reading like questions off the screen, which I don't mind, but he would have these like weird, like automated clapping. So every time I give him a good answer, like the clapping would start, and I would be like, what the heck? And he would like talk in like the same tone of voice and like no inflection at all, and it was insane. So
Yeah. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen.
yes,
Yeah. I feel like you might not really know what the example of a perfect host is, but the moment you encounter an example, you tend to say, definitely, I should not do this. I don't know what it means to be a great host, but I know that if I don't do this, I will.
yeah. So definitely don't be like that guy, and you'll be good.
Yeah. Okay, I've asked a couple of questions, but I'm gonna give you for the beings that's left. And is there anything peculiar you love to share?
You can go to wheelwithit.com to find out about everything about the podcast. Wheelwithit.com/reform to find out all about the Social Security and Medicaid, Social Security/Medicare/Medicaid reforms that we're doing. And yeah, I would love for you to check those out if you're in the US, especially. And contact representatives about if you're in the US.
Ron, I'm glad you came on the podcast, and I'm also glad I got to chat with you. Please, let's stay in touch.
Yes, we can stay in touch and be podcast besties. So yes, I would love that. That's it for today's episode of my podcast story. I am Wisdom Okonkwo, and I hope this conversation sparked new ideas and gave you a deeper look into the heart of podcasting. If you've loved this episode, consider supporting the show by buying me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/wisdomhq. Every bit helps keep the stories going. And hey, don't forget to follow, rate, and share this podcast with another podcaster or creator who would find it helpful. Thanks again for listening, and I'll catch you in the next episode.